Okay, well, welcome back to Nicola Morgan, and thank you so much for joining us. We really are so grateful to have you. I think I first met you in Belfast a few years ago. I don't know if you remember, at an HMC conference where we were both speaking, and I got you into PGS shortly after that to speak to our pupils. You've delivered staff training since then, and we're delighted to welcome you to our Diversity and Inclusion Society to talk about introversion. So over to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the school, to Portsmouth Grammar School, for inviting me back to speak again. It is very disconcerting, and it's quite ironic, since I'm talking about introversion. It's very disconcerting not being able to see you, because I don't know if you've ever had to do that yourselves, give a talk when you can't see the audience and you can't see how they're reacting. It is very difficult, but I'm delighted to be here anyway. Now, this is a really short, informal talk. I'm not going to do a PowerPoint presentation or anything, because I think we've all had a lot of those. So I'm talking to you about introversion and extroversion. I'm not really talking about extroversion, but we can't talk about introversion without thinking about the opposite. And I thought I'd first tell you really briefly why I'm interested in it, why this is a topic for me. So I talk about and write about all sorts of topics to do with human behavior and how we can look after ourselves best and how we can make our brains and our bodies work as best as possible. But the reason that introversion is one of the bits of that I am really interested in is because I'm an introvert myself. And a lot of people find that surprising to hear, because a big part of what I do is public speaking. And okay, now I'm not in front of an actual audience that I can see, but I'm very familiar with, and now comfortable with, although I wasn't at first, comfortable with standing on a stage and talking to an audience of however many people it might be. And yet I am identify as a really strong introvert. And I'm really interested in how different people work. We're all the same, we're all human, but we're also all different. We're different in so many different ways. And one of the sets of ways that we're different is in personality. And one of the aspects of personality is about introversion and extroversion. And some of you will already feel that you are introverts, and some of you will already feel that you are extroverts, and some of you will feel that you're just in the middle and maybe sometimes feel introvert and sometimes feel extrovert. And that is completely normal and natural. We're all on a scale. There are some people who identify really strongly as introverts, and some who identify really strongly as extroverts, and some who identify completely in the middle and couldn't say one or the other. And we also might feel different. We might identify differently on different days, depending on how things are going or who we're with or what the situation is. But it is something about our personality that changes very little, and some people would argue doesn't change at all throughout our lives. And you might find that quite a big concept to deal with. But psychologists who understand about personality believe and agree that there are certain aspects of personality which really don't change, but we can change our behavior, our reaction, if we want to. So if there's a certain way that we're behaving or feeling that we would like to change, or that is making life difficult for us, there are things that we can do to change how we react and how we understand things and how we feel about it, even though certain personality aspects are fixed. I'm going to explain to you what it is and what it isn't in a minute, but I thought you'd also like to know what else I'm going to cover in this really quick talk. So I'm going to say what introversion is and what it isn't. I'm going to give you a way, show you a way that you can test, if you want to, how strongly introvert or extrovert you are. I'm going to say something about whether it's possible to tell whether somebody else is an introvert. I'm going to say what the advantages are, because there are strong advantages. I'm going to say what the disadvantages might be, and then I'm going to say what you can do about those disadvantages if you want to. So what is it and what isn't it? Firstly, it's not about being shy, and lots of people who feel that they are introverts may feel that because people keep judging them and accusing them of being too shy, or why don't you speak up more, things like that that you might have said to you. But introversion isn't about whether you're shy or not. That often comes into it, but that's not the main thing that it's about. It's also not about whether you're good at performing in front of other people, performing on a stage, for example, or performing by giving speeches, or performing by standing up in front of the class. Yes, those things might be extra challenging for introverts, but being an introvert does not make you less good at those things. You might have to find some different strategies and have a bit more help or a bit of different training, but anyone, whether they're introvert or extrovert, can be really good at performing and doing those things in public. And you might be interested to know that a significant number of actors and comedians, so people whose whole life is involved in standing up on a stage and performing, a lot of them will also identify as introverts. So what it is a biological thing. It's a way that your body responds to all of the things around you. So that can be things like noise and light and movement, but it especially means people. So for an introvert, we have a stronger biological response. We react more, we are more alerted, more stressed often by anything that involves other human beings. And that can be an audience that you're talking to, but it can equally be a small group of friends. So any situation that you're in which involves interacting with even one or more other people is a social situation. And those are the situations which introverts will react to more strongly. So biologically, that means that your heart rate rises, your breathing rises, you have more of a stress response in those situations compared to somebody who is more extrovert. And in those situations, so any social situation, and remember that means literally any situation involving you and another person, means that you as an introvert burn more energy than an extrovert would burn. So it doesn't mean you do the job less well. It means that at the end of it, you would be more tired than an extrovert, whereas an extrovert gets energy from those situations. So an extrovert feels more energetic after a social situation, whereas an introvert feels more exhausted and needing a break. And also for an introvert, a large amount of your concentration, so your brain bandwidth, what's going on in your mind, is taken up with managing that social situation. And that can mean that if you're having to do a piece of work in class which is collaborative, so you're working with another person or a group of people, then part of your brain is taken up by not learning things, not doing good work, but in managing the social situation. What are those people thinking of me? How am I interacting with them? Are they happy with me? Have I said too much? Have I said too little? All of those things are occupying an introvert's mind more than an extrovert's mind. So an introvert is happier and more relaxed, so feels more relaxed in quieter situations, with fewer people and with less noise and with less movement and activity and lights and excitement. Whereas extroverts have a need for that noise and those noisy, exciting situations. So all of those things that I've just said describe me in terms of being an introvert. That's how I am. And it's taken me a long time to come to understand that. I shouldn't need to have taken so long, because if I had listened to someone like me or read a book like the one that I'm going to recommend to you in a minute, I would have understood it much earlier, and I would have been able to respect my own introversion and work with it and understand it a lot better. But there's another aspect of introversion which might apply to you but doesn't seem to apply to me so much, and that is that introverts tend to take more time to make decisions. They are not so impulsive, but I am quite impulsive. I do think about decisions as well sometimes, but I very often do things without thinking about them very strongly. I just kind of dive in and try them. And that's actually quite an extrovert way of behaving. So I thought I'd just say that to you, because that's an example of how a person isn't just an extrovert or just an introvert. They can be a mixture of the things as well. Now, you might be interested in testing your own level of introversion, and there are various ways that you can do that. I've written about introversion in a couple of my books. So the Teenage Guide to Friends has quite a lot about introversion, because it has a lot in it about different personality types and what all the differences are between us. But I've also written about it briefly in Positively Teenage, and I thought I would just do a really short, there's a very short quiz in Positively Teenage. It's a longer one in the Teenage Guide to Friends. So I'm just going to read out to you six statements, and if you've got something to write on, then you can write down a score for this, or otherwise you can just add it up in your head. And you could score 0 if you don't think that this applies to you at all, or you could score 1 if it kind of applies to you a bit, and you can score 2 if it strongly applies to you. So 6 statements. I often think that I really need to be on my own for a bit. Second one is, I get tired after talking to friends for a long time, and I feel better after I've had a break. And the third one is, I like chatting to just a couple of friends more than being with a larger group. And number 4, I really prefer quiet places to noisy, lively ones. Number 5, I find my mind becomes overloaded when I'm with other people, and the noise can be stressful, so I sometimes make excuses to leave early. And finally, I much prefer working on my own to doing shared work or collaborative work. So that's 6 statements, and if you said, if you strongly agreed with all of those, then you'll have got 12. So 12 is the highest score that you could have got. And obviously, the higher the score, the more likely you are to be strongly introverted. But that doesn't tell you enough. There are much longer quizzes that you can do. As I say, there's one in the Teenage Guide to Friends. But the book and the website that I recommend that you look at, and the website has a test that you can do online. It's completely free. And I don't think you even have to give your email address if you don't want to. And so it's a website called Quiet Revolution. It's quietrev.com. And I'll write this down for you and give it to your teachers in case you didn't catch that. But quietrev.com. And the person who writes the material for it, is a person called Susan Cain. Susan and then Cain, C-A-I-N. And she wrote a book called Quiet Power. So I recommend that website and that book for you, and you'll be able to test your own levels of introversion there. So can you tell whether someone else is? No, not really. And adults shouldn't assume, none of us should assume, we shouldn't judge other people and say, oh, that person is strongly introvert or that person is strongly extrovert. There are certainly some clues, and if you guess whether someone is or isn't, you could well be right, but it can also often be hidden. And somebody sitting quietly is not necessarily being introvert. They might just want to sit quietly, or they might have something going on in their lives, or all sorts of other reasons. So we can't really judge whether somebody else is. We can only identify it in ourselves. So then the advantages then, if you are strongly introvert, what might the advantages of that be? Well, you're likely, and none of these things are definite, but you're likely to take time over thinking about things, or taking time over a piece of work. And so you're likely to do very careful work and come up with something. You give yourself the opportunity then to come up with something really good. So you can do really good work. Of course, extroverts can do really good work as well. But as an introvert, you are likely to give yourself more chance of doing that, because you will take things more carefully. You will think things through. You might do some extra reading and go and ask some people some questions and get more information. So there are advantages to your work, both at school and in whatever work you end up doing in later life. You're also, as an introvert, you're very valuable on a team. Every team, whatever that team is trying to do, I mean teams in work rather than teams in sport, although that could be helpful as well. But on a team, in a job that you're trying to do, or a project you're trying to push through, or an event you're trying to organize, introverts are very valuable on that team because they get on with things. They get on with the work and they come up with ideas. They like coming up with ideas on their own, but they will come up with those ideas and show them to the team. As a friend, you are likely to be a great listener and therefore a great friend. Introverts are great as friends. Extroverts are great as well. They bring life to the party. But as a friend, as an introvert, then you are likely to be a great listener, and anybody wants to have somebody who will listen to them properly rather than just talking. And so that means that another advantage is that people will come to you for advice. People will enjoy being around you. And that's important to know, because often introverts feel that people don't enjoy being around them, because introverts tend to be the quieter ones. They're not the life and soul of the party. The extroverts tend to be the life and soul of the party. But don't feel that only the life and soul of the party people are the ones that people like being around. People also like being around introverts. So introverts and extroverts can be equally popular, even though sometimes extroverts look as though they're more popular, but you can be just as popular. But there are some disadvantages. So if you are an introvert, you might already have noticed people undermining you for being too shy, and that might make you feel inadequate. So try to understand that and push back on it and say, well, actually, no, I'm not shy. I just prefer to be quiet. I'm a thinker. I'm a thinker rather than an extrovert person. You might find that you suffer from stress more because there are some extra things to be stressed about or to cause you stress when you're an introvert. All of that, the noise and the expectation to perform and all of those things can be more stressful. And school can be a very noisy place. In the break times and lunch times, it can be really noisy, and it can be hard for you to find the place you need to be quiet. You can be more tired after any social situation. You can find collaborative work more difficult. And sometimes we do need to perform, and you might be tempted to avoid those opportunities to perform because you might feel worried about it. So it's really important not to avoid those opportunities. And you might feel sometimes that you don't fit in because you feel like the quiet person. So what can you do about it? Really briefly, I think I'll put this all in a handout as well for you. You can respect it and understand it. So have a look at that website, have a look at that book, Quiet Power. Notice when it's affecting you negatively. So notice when you're tired and you need more, you need space, you need to get away, and fight for that space that you need. If you need, I know that this isn't always practical in a school setting, but in the evening when you get home, for example, fight for, ask for, say what you need. Say that you just need to be on your own. I'm absolutely fine. I just want to be on my own. I've been with people all day. I now need to be on my own for an hour. Educate other people about it. If you can find out about what introversion means and understand it in yourself, help other people understand. Make sure you get plenty of time to relax and to chill and to be on your own, and find the best environment for doing your best work. If you find it easier to be on your own in your bedroom to do your work, then do that. Or if you'd be better in a library, in a public library, then find that as well. Find what works for you. But also do learn the skills that let you shine in a world which is based on being extrovert. So this idea of performing and presenting, everything gets easier with practice, and some difficult things like standing in front of an audience are worth trying because they give you huge reward at the end as well. So I hope that's given you a few ideas that you might not have thought of to add to the ideas you probably already have thought of about introversion. And don't forget to get more information from quietrev.com and Quiet Power by Susan Cain. But also do have a look at Positively Teenage and the Teenage Guide to Friends, which I think are both in your school library. And if you haven't got any copies left, then if the school librarian can let me know, and I will send you some. Now, if you have time for any questions, that would be lovely, but you might not have time. If you want to ask me a question anyway, then you're very welcome to email me or contact me through my website, or maybe in your classes, in your groups, you could discuss some questions about it, and you could put them all together and send them to me, and I will promise to do my best to answer them. So I don't know if Miss Hart is there or if Mrs. Morgan is there, and
Hello.
if you wanted to, I don't know if they have got time for questions. I don't know who's there. This is the trouble
Yeah,
with not being able to see the audience. There might be nobody there.
Yeah, if anyone wants to ask a question, please feel free to put up your hand or turn on your mic or camera. That's absolutely fine. I know some people have had to go off to games, so yeah, it is difficult to know who's here. I think in the meantime, I just wanted to say thank you for that. As someone who definitely identifies as a very strong extrovert, I think it really helps me to have more empathy, because sometimes it can be difficult to understand people who are viewing the world and approaching the world in such different ways. It can be difficult sometimes, can't it? I was just wondering, as you were talking, whether there's any evidence to suggest that there's a gender split in terms of introvert or extrovert, or is that not something that really bears out?
Yeah, interesting question. No, not really, not as far as we know. And bearing in mind that in any case, it is difficult to say how many people, whoever they are, how many people are strongly introvert and how many are strongly extrovert, because it does depend how you measure it. But no, there isn't, as far as I'm aware, there isn't any evidence of any significant gender difference there. And I can't think of a reason why there would be. You know, often when we see differences between genders, we can see why that might have arisen, whether it's because of expectations or whatever. And I guess, okay, maybe you might think that traditionally, or in lots of situations, girls have been rewarded for being quiet, let's say, and boys rewarded for being noisy. But I don't personally, I don't think that is particularly true actually anymore. It may have been once, but no. So I don't think there is a gender thing, and I definitely don't think we should go around thinking that there might be, because I don't think that would get us anywhere useful. But no, that was an interesting question, and important, I think, to nail that. I think in schools it's so difficult. It's difficult for teachers because you have to do collaborative work. You have, and it's good for us to learn to collaborate. And you have to also ask students to show what they know. And one of the ways of showing what you know is by putting up your hand and answering a question, or by presenting in class. And those things are important, partly because they're important skills to have, the ability to speak up and to say what you feel confidently, and to present your work are important in life throughout as well. But I think it's important for teachers to find ways to do that in a way that allows introverts to do their best work as well. And that book, Quiet Power, has a lot in it for teachers as well, because there are ways of allowing introverts and extroverts to do equally well in class, including presenting information and making it a comfortable, safe environment for someone to say that, and to speak up, and for someone to get something wrong, to make a mistake. So there are techniques which I wish that my teachers when I was at school had known, because all that happened to me was I was just constantly told she should speak up more in class, or or come to the front of the class and do something on the board, which was just my absolute dread. And also in my mind, I was thinking, well, why should I? Because if I know the answer, why isn't that enough? Why do I have to also share the answer? And I do realize why that's important now. But as a child and at school, I didn't see why I should. I thought it should be enough for me just to present the information in an exam or a test or whatever.
It did strike me actually when you delivered the inset training back in April, I think it was, wasn't it? And you talked about how some of the pupils in our class could be feeling really exhausted by having had to speak up present something and so on. And I've definitely paid more attention to that since myself, because again, as an extrovert, it's not something that I have experienced myself and previously couldn't really relate to.
Yes, I remember saying that, and the other thing which I remember so well from being at school myself, but it also still carries on if I'm in the audience of a talk now, is that in terms of asking a question or answering a question, before I, in the audience, will do that, ask a question or answer a question, I'm thinking it through and plucking up courage and practicing in my head the words. So I'm missing what the speaker is saying for a significant amount of time. And then I say the thing, ask the question or whatever. And then I'm missing for a significant amount of time, a minute or more, I'm missing the whole next bit of what they say, because I'm calming down after the stressful thing of having to speak up, and then I'm analyzing, oh, did it make sense, and what did other people think of it? And so I'm missing a lot of information there. And for a student in the classroom setting, that's even harder than it is for an adult, because the student will find it difficult to say, really sorry, could you please say that again, because I didn't get it. Students understandably find that really difficult to do. And it's often not possible to do it. So students are missing, introverted students more than extroverted students are missing significant bits of information that you might have said to them, because they have just had to become an extrovert for 5 seconds or something.
So interesting. And I'm sure lots of our pupils who are watching this now and will catch up with it later will really relate to that. Nicola, thank you so much for giving us your time again. You're becoming quite a regular feature at PGS, and I really hope that we can get you back again. Every time I hear you speak, I learn something new, and it really is fascinating. So thank you so much. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you very much indeed. And I really would welcome questions through my website. Maybe the teachers could gather some questions together and send them in. And if appropriate, I can answer them publicly on my blog as well, obviously without naming anybody, but I'll name the school, but not the people. Thank you very much.
If people want to contact me either by email or through the D&I Google Classroom, then please do, and I'd be happy to pass those on. All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope
that's a pleasure.
Has a good weekend.
Yeah, have a good weekend. Bye. Bye.